Hey, what's up, everybody? Frederick Polk here. So, I want to talk about this whole no tax on tips thing, which that's not really passing. And it's really nebulous, like all things Republicans do. You got to look at the fine print. But I want to talk to you specifically about why, even if it did pass as they said it would be a scam. So, versus actually increasing the minimum wage. Because in a lot of other first world countries, they don't have tipped employees. Okay? Everything's minimum wage. And that's because they get paid a living wage. And somehow they find a way to make it work. But I digress. So, what happens when you're basically a tipped employee? And let's say, but Fred, I thought that would be, no taxes would be awesome. I mean, isn't that awesome? Hang on. So, most people use debit cards or credit cards nowadays, right? In fact, using cash apps is even more prevalent. I use them now for a few things. Just giving money to friends, swapping it back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And if you notice, if you've ever used a cash app of any kind, Venmo, the actual cash app, Zelle, whatever, it usually takes like 1 to 3 days if you don't want to get the funds instantly. If you want to get the funds instantly, you got to pay a little bit of a processing fee. Otherwise, it takes a little bit. Well, there's a reason for that. Because that company is doing so many transactions, they hold on to that money and they loan it out to banks, and they get a percentage of the daily treasury yield, right? That's why the yield market, the treasury bond market it's so important, especially with the volatility that's going on right now. So for an employer, they don't pay you daily, usually, right? There's a few jobs that do, but most people are paid every 2 weeks. And you're paid from the previous 2 weeks, not the 2 weeks you're currently working. And maybe it bleeds over 1 week into your next paycheck, right? That's by design. It's so employers can hold on to that money, and if they can and they're big enough, they can take advantage of the treasury bonds or the treasury yield. That's what that's for. They can collect daily interest. So most of those electronic tips, especially now that you see when they flip around and it's like, hey, would you like to tip? Those go to the employer. And they divvy them out however they deem fit. And a lot of them take a percentage themselves, right? So basically if that works the way they want to, they've just given even more untaxed revenue to corporations and employers, rather than giving that bonus to employees in the form of minimum wage. Because if employers actually paid minimum wage, then what would happen is they now have to pay in more to unemployment insurance. And that is something that you could actually, if they messed around, you could take to your labor relations board if it was worth a damn and you weren't in a red state, and sue them for basically unpaid wages, which is a much bigger deal than anything else that we deal with. Employers not paying their employees on time, not paying them overtime, not paying them a fair rate. Oh, that's a huge deal. Whereas with tips, it gets to be a lot more nebulous. But that's what Republicans want. They want it to favor corporations and employers and not the employees. Just like everything else that Republicans do, it's a scam. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.